All
I
right,
don't have my
ladies.
favorite pen, so am I really ready?
Are you ready? All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the That's Not Real Trek Watch Party podcast. My name is Scotty, also known as EBC. Directly below me, the lovely Short and Sweet, my co-host, my partner in crime, and she will be baking cookies for every single person watching this for all of eternity. At least that's what she said. I don't know. You're gonna have
Yeah.
to see. Anyway, this is episode 9, and this week we are beginning Discovery Season 2. We finished up Discovery Season 1 and watched 4 of the short treks last week. So let me ask you before we do anything else, what are you expecting or hoping that you see coming in now to Season 2?
Ooh, season two. I'm hoping that Giorgio is not just a loose end, that she comes back into the story. Hoping to see some more character development, maybe like get deeper into the backstories of a few that we haven't got, we've seen them on screen, but we haven't kind of like figured out, what their personalities are too deeply.
Right.
Yeah, excited to see where it goes.
Um, Yeah, and I would say that's probably like typical of any good show that now we're all introduced to the characters. We know what everything is all about. Let's do some character development beyond maybe like the central figures. Like obviously we saw some development with Burnham. We
Mhm.
saw some development with Saru, and definitely with Tyler, his whole transformation. Um, and yeah, now with season 2, we're definitely going to start getting into the character development of some of the other minor characters. And I think back to like the Next Generation, where the first and most of the second season was not that great. Um, just obviously they were trying to fill a niche, and they were hitting all those good old Star Trek vibes for the original fans, while also trying to get some new fans to come on the train. And the storylines were okay, but they weren't great. And as our good friend Legion Cage in the chat is pointing out, that maybe some of the characters just should have never been there in the first place, or
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, I
I
don't.
think
Go ahead.
I feel like they had a couple of, really good episodes, really solid episodes, but overall, season one and two, it's kind of
Yeah.
a chore to get through those.
Yeah. And to me, I would say the same thing about the original series. I mean, there was a few really good episodes, but most of the entire series is a chore to get through. Or, the motion picture from 1979. That just was god awful. But yeah, I think in general though that maybe I don't know if it's indicative of just Star Trek, but probably the broader spectrum of all of TV is you really need to take the first season to introduce the viewers to who and what everything is. Then you can start some deeper character development. Um, so yeah, there was little bits and pieces of it, but like with TNG, my favorite season was season 5 and season 6, because I thought in that moment you really saw the best of the writers and the best of the actors who have been now playing this role for several years. So maybe that's gonna be a thing that we see with some of these newer series like Discovery's now in season 4, and Picard is going to have a third and final season, so we won't necessarily see that long term effect with them, but we'll have to see what else is coming of it. And it almost seems like CBS and Paramount have tried to ram everything that they possibly can into developing everything that works all at the same time almost. Like, I mean, we
Yeah.
had DS9 and Voyager run concurrently for a good portion of it. I think like 5 years of overlapping of those two, and that was also prevalent in the storyline for those two series. But like all of these, and I do think that even though they take place in like different eras, there's going to be a lot of connections revealed over time between those two things. There's going to be connections between Discovery and Picard, most certainly between Discovery and Strange New Worlds, and some of the other series. Now that they're taking a whole new turn on, okay, what are we doing with Star Trek in this modern era? So yeah, it's just interesting to see how these series evolve. From my perspective, season two, I really want to see, and I've already seen it, but you know, the thing I would be critical of with season two of Discovery is, are they going to be able to win over hearts and minds that this then belongs in Star Trek? And obviously, there's this whole group of people out there that isn't going to like it no matter what it is. But are they going to be able, with their storytelling, now that everything is established, really start to fill out those things that made Star Trek great in the first place, and captured people's attention and interest in them? So we'll see if that actually occurs. So in the first episode, Brother, when we left off, the crew of the Discovery had made it back safely from the universe and brought a peaceful, or at least a civil, end to the Klingon War, and Burnham herself was able to kind of resolve all of that internal conflict with starting the war in the first place, or at least being a major player in it, and then also being a major player in bringing it to its end, even though it was basically L'Rell who did it. And now that I think of it, that actually brings up an interesting point, that it wasn't necessarily Burnham that started the war. It was Takuvma who decided this is what we're going to do now. And then it was L'Rell at the end who decided this is how we're going to end it.
Yeah.
If neither one of those people had done what they'd done, maybe it wouldn't have been the exact same thing. So, but yeah, we left off with that. So the Klingon War is over, and that does wrap up the major theme that was overarching all of season one, even though we had this big detour into the mirror universe. And at the very end of the last episode, we're making contact with a Federation starship that is not answering the communications properly. It's almost like a communications blackout. So that could mean a couple of different things. That means either there's some kind of very dire secret emergency that requires a communications blackout on the other part of the starship, or something is gone wholly and completely wrong. And then we find out it's the Enterprise. The original Enterprise, under the command of Captain Pike, not Captain Kirk. This is still 5 years out from Captain Kirk's command. So now we're going to see exactly what could possibly cause that scenario as we begin season two, and the first episode, Brother. Then after that, we're going to look at season two, episode two, New Eden. So here we go. All right. So what'd you think?
Pretty good. For a season opening, it felt like it was like a 2-hour episode. There was a lot of things going on there.
Yeah, it was a little bit longer. It came out to an hour, so they definitely did it, longer than the standard, say, 40 or 42-minute episode. And yeah, they were trying to fit quite a bit in there because I mean we had several things they had to reveal in order to almost like kickstart the season 2 storyline and put things in place to now do everything they need to do. So first and foremost is the signals. This is the reason why Captain Pike is taking command of Discovery in the first place. Is the Federation has witnessed, basically, because they can't scan it beyond just recognizing that it's there. The 7 bright red signals scattered across the universe, at least known Federation space, and they're sending Pike to be the captain of Discovery to go figure out what the hell this is. Yeah, as he said when they arrived, where's my damn red thing, So before we go any further with that, obviously you like Captain Pike. What are your impressions of him and Anson Mount, who plays him?
He's really cool. Like I think they tried to make him just very modern and very like I don't know, he's just cool. Like you can't
Yeah,
imagine any other captain sitting there going like hit it and then it
yeah,
works.
yeah. Especially
So,
not
yeah.
Jean-Luc Picard. Jean-Luc Picard
Right,
would never
yeah.
go hit it,
You know, hit it.
But also, I mean, he just, and most captains do this. Like you see, the confidence that Kirk had and Picard and all of that. It was always a varying confidence based on like their brand and their persona and all that. But I mean, his is off the scale. His confidence is like oozing out of his skin, and he just sits there with that very relaxed shoulders, like hit it.
Feedback, yeah.
So that's one thing I'm definitely looking for. I mean, everybody that knows Star Trek knows that Picard's catchphrase was "engage," and we had some similar things throughout the series. That was just like the way they did it. Definitely, this is going to be Anson Mount playing Captain Pike, because the next series we're going into after we complete the season is Strange New Worlds. um, so that was really cool. And from there, let's go now into all of the new characters and old characters we've been introduced to. So the first thing is, coming over from the Enterprise, we had Captain Pike and his one security officer. Let me find the name of her here.
Connolly? No.
Connolly was the one that died.
Okay.
Yeah, Commander Nan. She's the one that has the. They're very similar to. I think it's Bolians. A breathing apparatus so that she can breathe in an oxygen-rich atmosphere. Whatever her species is, I can't remember. They can't do that, and that will come into play later in the story. But yeah, Lieutenant Connolly, who you were not a fan of,
Not a fan.
and
Big ass head.
and I think that was part of the storyline. You were not meant to like Lieutenant Connolly, and he died. So good riddance.
Well, I think it was a misdirect too, because they put her in red. So then you're automatically like, oh, the red, she's gonna die, she's gonna die.
Yeah. And then on the Discovery crew, we meet some of the minor characters, and some of their names have been mentioned previously, but this is the first time, and I thought it was a great use of the writing and the script to this function of a roll call. We've never necessarily heard that in Star Trek, even though it's been a thing for in various venues for as long as we can remember. School doing a roll call, especially if there was a teacher there that was new and didn't know everybody's name. But clearly, Captain Pike, not necessarily having the time to look over everybody that's a bridge crew member or something like that, this is how he decided to do that. And I thought it was pretty good. So we've been familiar with Burnham and Saru and Stamets and Tilly, Dr. Culber, and now we're introduced to Lieutenant Commander Arium, played by Hannah Cheesman. She's the one with the robotic skin. And we're going to get a little bit more, like as they do the character development for some of the minor characters here this season. We're going to get a much better look at who she is and why she is like that. She's actually human, but she's been cybernetically enhanced. And we'll get to a storyline as to how she came to be the way she is. um, then at the helm, we've got Lieutenant Kayla Detmer. She's also got a little bit of enhancement there with a almost like a 7 of 9 type implant above her eye socket. Lieutenant Reese, who is operations, and Lieutenant Owasakun, who is at ops, the front ops station. Basically, I would say the way they seem to make it out to be is kind of like almost like a science slash navigation station, the same type of station that Chekhov had opposite Sulu in the original series. And then Ronnie Rose playing Lieutenant R.A. Bryce. He's the communications officer. So we've seen them since the beginning, but now we're actually more learning their names and who they are and what they're doing. So, what are your first impressions of the crew as a whole now that we're starting to get to know who they are?
I like that they did that. I thought it was, yeah, really smart. Especially with Detmer, I think.
Hmm.
Like she had kind of a I wouldn't say a bigger role, but she seemed to have more lines in season one, so I think they're really gonna maybe dive deep with her, which is gonna be nice to see. But yeah, I think it's interesting that they've got like this core group and then they've got this secondary group,
Yeah,
and we're gonna try to like push it all together and make it an ensemble cast.
right.
You know, like I think one of the reasons TNG worked so well was that it was an ensemble cast. It wasn't like, here's the captain, he's the main character, and we're going to follow his storyline. It was like we're going to pick and choose. This episode's going to be about this one. This
Right.
episode's going to be about that one. So I hope that that's what their goal is moving forward. These like side characters.
Yeah, and it is, or at least that's some of them we're definitely going to explore much more in detail. And then two more characters that may or may not be regulars. We don't know yet because obviously, as we've been introduced to all of these people, that as a plot device, they are shown to us as being now the solid cast of Discovery's crew moving into season two. Uh, they're obviously going to be there. We were also introduced to Linus, who we actually have seen before, but didn't have any kind of like other main interaction until this turbo lift scene where he's got a cold and kind of like sneeze pukes on Connolly. So that was fun. And Lieutenant Jet Reno, who is the engineer on the Hiawatha, and she is now on Discovery along with the people that she kept alive from the Hiawatha, and finds out that the war is over. And we definitely see a place for Jet Reno moving forward. Um, Especially because if you consider that Lieutenant Stamets was Commander Reno, I'm sorry, uh, Lieutenant Stamets is not an engineer. He's a scientist, and he is basically in charge of the spore drive, but he's not an engineer. So we haven't really seen, even in engineering, somebody in charge of engineering like we have, like Geordi LaForge or Scotty or anything like that. um, and if it's not clear, there definitely is a position there for her. So I think that's one of the things that they were going for, is trying to maybe fill that hole and say, okay, here's how we're going to do this. But we also don't know how long Commander Reno is going to be there either. She was not assigned to Discovery. She's just there as a rescuee, so she may not be there very long. Um, then we come to the plot point, which was at the beginning of it. Why was the Enterprise in a communications blackout? And they kind of half answered it. So what they were talking about was just having a complete and total failure of the communication systems, and it started affecting some other subsystems and things like that, to the point where they were getting a cascading systems failure. And he also mentioned something, Pike mentioned something that was very important, but maybe kind of glazed over, was that they were sidelined during the Klingon War. In other words, the Federation Council and head of Starfleet and all that decided, yeah, you in the brand new Constitution class ship that is the top of the line and eventually going to be the flagship of the Federation, yeah, you're not going to be in the war.
They didn't want to get any scratches on it.
Well, yeah, I
It
mean,
was brand new.
um, and I don't know if you picked up on it, but Captain Pike's a little bit salty about it.
Yeah, he didn't seem pleased.
No. So we're going to discuss that further. But in any case, they were having some problems that then ended up being that the Enterprise is just completely disabled, and so then there was further dialogue about it being back in space dock, and the repairs were going to take months. So in the meantime, he's taking control of Discovery. So what are your thoughts on Pike now being cast and Anson Mount as the person doing that, but more specifically just Pike as the person who is replacing Lorca?
I think it's kind of weird, and he definitely is coming in as like we're gonna, that line that he used to, like, we're like gonna co-parent,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be different to see how, like, if that's gonna cause any rifts between the two, if they're gonna fight. I kind of think that hopefully they can just make it work. But I think Anson Mount kind of has a name behind him, as did um, Jason Isaacs. So maybe that was part of that they pulled in some more star power to get, see if they could bring in some more viewers. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Jason Isaacs I knew before. Anson Mount I did not.
I'd heard the name. I mean, I couldn't pick out like something that he did, but I knew the name as soon
Yeah.
as I heard the name. Um,
Yeah, so maybe he was more up and coming in that. Everybody knew Sonequa Martin Green from The Walking Dead. I mean, at least if you were a Walking Dead fan, she was, like one of the main stars of the show for season
few years,
4,
yeah.
5, 6, and then I think she died. So she was well known on that. And the guy that plays Stamets, he was on Rent. He was on several other things, as was Culber, they've been in several things that deal a lot with LGBT rights, movies and musicals and things that are all there. But everybody else is almost an unknown. Um, but yeah, my concept of that was that I think they were kind of setting the stage for Strange New Worlds. In one aspect of it, just in case that was that was probably in development, at the time, and they're like, well, do we really want to move forward with this? Okay, so how do we make that kind of like a spin-off or a transition? And then, oh, let's put Pike in the captain's chair on Discovery because we don't have a captain. And this also coming on the heels of the Klingon War being done, and it seems like Starfleet has been pretty well decimated. Um, they were on Earth's doorstep and about to, destroy Earth or raise holy hell. So there may not be another captain available. And it was only because the Enterprise had these severe difficulties and had to go back to space dock that they're like, okay, well, we'll just put Pike over here for now. And then on top of the added issue of the red signals, and we need to go figure out what the hell this is and see if it's a threat to the Federation. Um, all right, so what did you think of the scene right at the beginning with Burnham meeting Spock as a child and Spock as a child?
I mean, I think they touched on it with season one a little bit. Now they're going a little deeper. They still haven't told us like really what the big issue is between them, but I think that's just kind of a lead up.
Yeah,
They're trying to build that.
it definitely is
Uh,
coming. Yeah,
yeah, make us curious and make us wonder and yeah, I mean, yeah, Spock seemed like he wasn't really about having a sister at all.
no. Um, and it's interesting. I think, we were talking in the chat about, how standoffish he is there, right? More so than a Vulcan typically is. Um, and I think, when I first saw that, my first thought was, oh, okay, so this is Spock as a child, and he isn't even close to mastering emotions. Which I might, obviously that's a thing a child on Vulcan would have to learn as it grows up, but, you know, even before adolescence, or puberty, so to speak, he's having trouble uh, stopping himself from giving her the cold shoulder and just basically not being respectful as his parents would hope. Um, that relationship changes. He starts to grow up and as we get to see more bits and pieces of their childhood relationship. But uh, I just thought it interesting. The character of Spock as a child, who we really haven't seen before. We've maybe heard bits and pieces and had a few indications of what he might have been like, but now we're actually seeing it on screen for the first time, and yeah, he's definitely got a long way to go yet. um, and the other aspect of that is when Burnham and Saru are walking towards the transporter room together, and he's telling her that he has a sister, Serena, and they haven't talked in quite some time either. So there's this now little minor connection between her and Saru that they're both having it's this kind of family issue, not being on good ground with their siblings. Um, and I could tell you straight out, I think, without ruining much of it, that's going to be a major plot point over this, because we didn't see him in this episode, but eventually we do have the actor Ethan Peck playing Spock in this. We do know from the original series that Spock, as a commander, at the time that Captain Kirk took command of the Enterprise, he was already at least 8 years out from Starfleet Academy, and had built himself up to the commander position in that time. And that also maybe is, I would say, corroborated a little bit by the Star Trek movie, the J.J. Abrams 2009, where Spock was teaching at the academy, not as a full professor, but as like a graduate, somebody who was helping teach other academy students, and he was the mastermind behind the Kobayashi Maru test that Kirk then defeated.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we got all of that. Family issues. Connolly got sneezed on and then died, and that was fantastic. Let's see. Got Pike in the Enterprise. Jet Reno, played by Tig Notaro. Now, this is the first time, when I first saw this, that I encountered Tig Notaro as an actress. I'd never seen her before. So, first of all, her dry comedy is just like unbelievably spot on, beautiful. She says everything with a deadpan face. She might as well be a Vulcan, you know. And then I started looking at some of the other things that she's done in the acting world, and it's just absolutely beautiful. So, have you seen anything else with her?
I don't know. So when I first saw her, I thought she looked familiar, but I couldn't pick out where I would have seen her from. So if I look, let me see if
Yeah,
I
I'm,
can
I'm gonna bring it up here
pull up
on.
IMDb.
Um, because I got to imagine that she was connected with the people that created Discovery by the same people that are part and parcel with the LGBT community in Hollywood. Um, uh, Same thing that what's his name that plays Stamets and Culber. You know, they were connected with Rent and several other things like that. Uh,
She was in an episode of The Office and Community. So that's where I
Probably
would have seen
Community.
her. Yeah. Yeah, she did an episode of each of those. She was a bartender in Community, and she was like a single parent in The Office. I don't remember her episode though, but that's where the recognition is, because I've seen the whole series for both of those shows.
Yeah, it seems like almost everything that she's done is TV related and comedy. Maybe a lot of stuff like Comedy Central
Hmm.
shows and things like that. She didn't even, like, her first credit was 2006. Um, and I did see a few other things, like I saw the episode she was on with Inside Amy Schumer,
Okay.
and the one episode of Garfunkel and Oates. Um,
Paige said she's in the episode of The Office where Andy gets beat up by the little girl. She's the little girl's mom.
oh, okay. I haven't seen most of The Office. I saw, I think, the first 2 seasons. Gotta go back and watch that. But I mean, she's got a lot of credits in her name. She was on Bob's Burgers, and she's actually got quite a few episodes here in Discovery coming up. She's got 14 credits to her name, or 14 episodes under that credit. So
That's good. Yeah,
we'll
she's a
see
very intriguing character.
see quite a bit of her. She's got she's got that talkback attitude, and the sarcasm is just like on a scale of 1 to 10, it's at a 20.
Yeah.
oh great, I thought we were gonna just all die here. Can you get us out of here? You know. And that's definitely, I mean, that in its essence, if you have seen her before or in other things, that's who she is. That's who she plays, and she does it well, and nobody else can do it quite like her. The extreme sarcasm with a deadpan expression, and that permeates her character in everything, and she adds I think a very distinctive flavor to this. You know, on one end we've got the Burnham who wants to save everyone and everything from everything. Then we've now got Pike, who is the coolest captain in America, and the engineer now that doesn't give a flying fuck what you think about her, and she's just gonna fix everything because she's that good, and don't you ever doubt it, you know.
I think scenes between her and Tilly are gonna be hilarious.
Yeah, and there will be. I have seen some of that, you know. So yeah, it should be great. All right. And then finally, we find out that Spock is not actually on board the Enterprise. So that whole issue with Burnham and coming back face to face with him after all these years is not going to happen quite yet. And that he is on leave, but we don't get any other details than that until she gets some. I didn't catch this. How she was either in Spock's quarters on the Enterprise or something else happened. She was taking a look at some of his personal effects there, and had the computer that he was drawing things on as a child was there, and she starts going through his personal logs and finds out that he knew about these red signals before the Federation did. So that's the biggest dun 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 moment. And he also, in that log, linked it to having nightmares as a child. And that's what led to Amanda giving him this drawing pad to use that as a method to cope with the nightmares. And we would think drawing some of the things that he sees in his nightmares, and that's maybe how we get to this point where Burnham pulls it off of the screen to put in the hollow projection in the air and find out that he knew about the signals. So, what are your whole thoughts on that aspect of it?
Yeah, it was a really weird transition. It was like he said, "Yeah, go to the ship," and then all of a sudden she's there. Like it was just like she's instantly there on the ship. I took it as she went to the Enterprise and is in his quarters. Um and I don't know, it seems kind of odd to just start reading his, like she's basically reading his diary
Yeah,
without his permission, and just, I don't know. It was a little strange.
maybe it's one of those things they wanted to just suspend disbelief on simply to move the story forward.
Yeah.
And like we said, or Paige said, it is a lot in this episode here that had to be jam packed into it, and we're we're having to deal with a lot of things to set the scene. Now, I mean, even though it's still going to be a part of season 2, the Klingon War seems long behind us now, and they're almost totally shutting down that storyline to now move forward with the second one.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I think it's pretty much. I think they did a good job with this one. They had a lot of dramatic tension. There was humor. There was, sad parts where you think characters are leaving. So I think it kind of had everything I wanted out of it.
And the action scene too, where they're driving these tiny little ships through the asteroid field, and it's perfectly fine if you do it on manual. Oh, suddenly he's dead, and now the captain's in peril, and we got to go through this heroic act of saving him.
Yeah.
Uh, That would have been interesting if Pike was just left to die. Burnham
Yeah.
didn't get to him in time, or he, abandoned him like he was trying to order her to do.
All right.
So, okay. So that's episode 1. Now on to episode 2, New Eden. Here we go. All right. So, lots of stuff going on in that one as well. Before we get to that, Legion Cage had mentioned in our chat here that it seems like uh, this type of storytelling, and I said, we'd get to this and mention it. It's so jam packed. There's so much going on. It's almost a total 180 from the type of storytelling that's been done in Star Trek before, and that is very episodic. I mean, there was some times when they did longer story arcs over a two-parter show, or an overarching theme for an entire season, even, especially in I think the first time they did that was season 3 of Enterprise, where there was a big attack on Earth, and they spent almost the entire season exploring that storyline. Um, but it's almost like they're attempting to fill the entire thing as much as possible with all these little snippets and things, and you really got to pay attention to everything that's going on. So, did you have any thoughts on that and how it's been presented so far?
Well, I think it's kind of a trend in TV overall that they're moving towards this more of an overarching storyline. You don't see as much of the like standalone episodes anymore. It's all like an overarching story. And I think that's just like a trend that we're seeing now in TV. So, and at times it does feel like it's too much, maybe because I've grown up with, X-Files, Star Trek The Next Generation. You've got standalone episodes. Um, so it's just very different.
Right. I mean, even X Files, there was always this, giant conspiracy that was the main thing they were exploring, and some episodes touched on it and maybe revealed bits and pieces, and most of them did not, and explored other story points. You're absolutely right about that. That it's more of a modern television thing. We never really saw that before, and maybe that's kind of relatively new as of the late '90s, early 2000s. Um, and I guess maybe the way I personally would characterize that is like they're trying to tell a story, and instead of trying to wrap it up in 50 minutes, we're dividing it up into all these little pieces that are the same length, 50 minutes or so, but we're focusing much more on the details than they could in a one episode thing. So you stretch the storyline over so many hours, and instead it becomes, a 10 or 12-hour movie just divided up into parts. um, the the focus of it, though, and why I brought that up is because we are getting so many different bits of information in here. Not only, um, character development, or background on who these people are, where they come from, but also references and filling in details for previous Star Trek plot points. So, like, we've heard the World War III mentioned before in Nemesis, or not Nemesis, in First Contact, in several other spots during the regular series. Um, This is actually maybe the first time that we've actually gotten a peek at the Third World War. And I've also read some of the Star Trek novels that kind of detail a little bit more on that. I think I've got one called Federation that talked about some of the people that were actually in the Third World War and what they were trying to accomplish, and filled out some of that storyline. Um, but it was always in relation to what's going on now in the Star Trek universe. So that's definitely the same, but haven't necessarily seen this level of detail before. Um, so now, in recapping the episode, we start the episode finding out that Spock is in an asylum. He was self-committed to a Federation asylum, um, and we think it's because that he saw these signals in his dreams, basically before the Federation knew about it. 2 months before we found out, and he thinks he's going crazy because of it. Like how can he have? I'll let you in on a term that he uses in the coming episodes. How can you have memories of the future? So he literally thinks he's going insane, and commits himself to an asylum, and eventually we're going to discover, what he is dealing with in that capacity. And this was also, just like many other aspects of it, something that was never mentioned in the original series or any other iteration of Spock. So they're adding to the story of what is supposedly canon history and giving us a peek into certain things. But trust me when I say it's all for a purpose. They literally have this storyline going that's overarching over all of season 2 that is going to take all of these little details and plug them into the correct holes, and then it makes sense. And even then, one of the things I was really fond of with Enterprise that you've never seen, correct? You haven't seen that yet?
Not a single episode.
That's all right. One of the things I'm really fond of with Star Trek Enterprise is how they took a lot of things that were maybe plot holes or things that were unexplained in Star Trek history and tried to explain it, such as why there were Klingons in the original series without forehead ridges. And maybe the explanation they didn't come up with was all that great, but I thought it was fantastic that they at least attempted to do that. So that's one of the things, and why I almost always have dismissed people that say that this is not real Star Trek because of yada yada yada, because in my mind, one of the most fantastic things about it is that the creators are attempting to fill holes in plot canon, and I think they do that wonderfully. So we saw a big, not a big portion, but actually a little snippet of World War III through this military person's helmet cam, and the story now being led is that this group of humans that now numbers 200 years later, over 10,000, were taken from Earth at the height of World War III from a church and dropped on this planet that they call Terra Elysium. And in order to survive, being of different religions and all that, they merged all of their religions into one to find peace. And the prime thing that, or the primary thing that Captain Pike is dealing with in contacting these people and seeing if they're all right, or seeing if they can find out what happened, is General Order 1. They're pre-warp civilization, so the prime directive, and we cannot interfere with their development. So we saw an interesting level of character development with Burnham in this episode, and that is, she decided not to try to circumvent Captain Pike's orders. and do what she thought was best. And there was like 3 different times she's arguing with him in this episode about, well, we can't just do that, you know. But in the end, she followed his orders. So, what was your opinion of that part of it? Burnham actually biting her tongue and not doing what she thought she needed to.
Pretty surprising because, even if in the past she pretended she was going to follow orders, then she just went ahead and did whatever she wanted anyways.
Right.
So, it was kind of surprising. It was like, oh, well, she must have a certain higher level of respect for Captain Pike as to where she's just gonna listen to him, even as short a time as he's been in charge.
Right. Um, and that also maybe speaks to the respect and the relationship that she's already developing with Captain Pike. Maybe that's just Captain Pike, that he's that cool as a cucumber, that he's easily approachable and able to form that good of a relationship with her right off the bat. Um, he's well aware of what she is capable of as a scientist and as a brilliant mind, whether she can, keep herself under control or not. So uh, maybe he's doing a far better job of wrangling her than one of the previous captains. Um, and then, like I said, we were going to start doing some minor character development. To this episode, we were dealing with Lieutenant Joanne Awashikan. I'm probably slaughtering that, but um, I get the feeling, without doing a lot of research, that this is a more traditional African name. The actress's name is Oyin Olade Joe or Ho, um, and she's been around for a little bit. This is the first time I've seen her, but I think that and you can tell she's got a bit of an accent, especially when she's got more lines. Um, that at least the way they were trying to portray her was, and why she was on this mission was because she grew up in a colony, or not so much of a colony, more of like a much smaller group or community that was decisively geared towards the socialistic mindset, more of you must sacrifice for your community in order for your community to take care of you. So they decided that her knowledge of that was going to be helpful on this mission. So we get to learn a little bit more about her, and we will even a little bit more in coming episodes. I thought the really interesting thing with her finding the magnet to move the slide bolt was pretty ingenious. What do you think of that?
Oh yeah, it's pretty cool. You can tell that, she's got the smarts, she's got something there.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, she could probably almost fill the role of a science officer, and
Hmm.
maybe is following a bit in Burnham's footsteps in that regard. Probably not quite as brilliant a mind, but definitely able to hold her own
Hmm.
and take care of her station on the bridge. Very very competent officer. We'll leave it at that. Um, let's see, what else do we have? Do do do. Okay, so the main part of the story that happened on Discovery, while Pike and Burnham and Owashkan were down on the surface, is all of a sudden the radiation that is higher than any other radiation level in something whatever, but technobabble they came up with, um, is now going to plummet towards the planet, and we've got an hour before extinction level event. Um, so aside from let's notch the universe saving up to level 11, uh, what was your concept of like how the Discovery crew was dealing with that whole situation?
No, I thought it was like kind of unnecessary, honestly. Uh, we already had a crisis, so we don't need a crisis within a crisis. But it was almost like, I don't know, that part felt kind of like it. We didn't need the extra
Yeah.
mission inside the mission. I don't know.
Well, and maybe that's just part and parcel with this whole thing where we're trying to cram a lot of different details and things into an episode because we actually had a crisis within a crisis within a crisis, and that is
Yeah.
Tilly apparently going crazy. She decided it was going to be in her best interest to try to remove a piece of the asteroid by herself and deal with the Stark Matter stuff because Stamets is an extremely sad person now. Having seen Dr. Culber in the network, whether he thinks that's real or not. So he doesn't want to do this anymore, and she's trying to find a way to help him do that, and she thinks dark matter is the way. Um, but as soon as she does that, now all of a sudden she's having visions of, we later find out, a dead person. Um, and we haven't seen this person before, this character that plays May. Um, and she definitely is going to be in the next episode as well because this is a thing now that Tilly has to deal with. She's having these visions of a dead person that are conversations she's actually having with another person in her head. So either she's hallucinating or something else is going on. We don't know yet. Uh, what came to mind when you saw all that?
Fight Club.
Well, I guess we can't talk about it then. Uh,
That's what I was like. Oh, when they do the reveal, it's like, oh, she's like talking to herself, and she doesn't realize that she's talking to herself. But
um, yeah, yeah. I mean, to let me just focus on the part that she says she usually bounces ideas off of somebody else, which is typically Burnham, but Burnham's not there. So perhaps this is something that her mind created to deal with that. Well, she also, we saw when she got the piece out of the meteorite, blood running down the
yeah,
side of
she
her
had her
head. So she
head.
took a good knock to the head,
Yeah.
and that could be part of it. Maybe it's a temporary thing, or who knows. Um, but yeah, that's interesting that you thought of Fight Club.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and the dealing with the overarching season theme, now we're dealing with what these red signals are and how that's coming about. Did you catch the end of the officer's video log on the helmet?
Oh yeah, we had the angel.
Yeah, so
Angel.
the angel, or maybe we'll say a slightly clearer and more detailed version of the same angel that Burnham saw when she was on the Hiawatha, is in uh, on Earth in 2053 during World War III to be able to take these people from that church, and they claim that she was saving them, which may be true. We don't know for sure. But if we'll assume if she was saving them, she intends to bring them halfway across the universe into the Beta Quadrant and drops them on a very Earth-like planet, where they then spend the next 200 years going through civilization of their own. So at the very least, we know that the red signals are at least somewhat related to this figure. That Burnham was very reluctant to call angelic. She just recognized that there was a very a similarity between what was on the stained glass in the church, this red angel, so to speak, and the vision that she saw, and now we know there's a link between that and what happened to the people in the church on Earth in 2053. So essentially, we're seeing the little bits of this puzzle being revealed one at a time, and it's very, very slow going in my mind.
Oh yeah.
Because,
It's like you get more questions than
yeah,
answers at this point.
yeah. At least I can tell you all will be revealed by the end of season 2, but it takes a good long while for them to tell this story, and there's going to be many tangents on the way. Um, so we will see what happens. But we do know that there are 7 red signals in total. So this is the second one that they have taken a look at, and we will probably take a look at another one in the next episode. But all but one disappeared, and then the new one started again. So we have to know that there is an intelligence behind what is happening there. It's not random. It definitely is something that is occurring at the behest of some organization or person who's trying to maybe direct some events. Um,
Q.
Q?
Q.
Oh, Q.
Yeah, Q.
Uh, yeah, maybe. Somebody. Somebody. We haven't seen Q in this series yet. I mean, TNG. He was never in original series, although
Right.
in a book, one of the books that I have that's called Q Squared, it was Trelane
Hmm.
that was playing around with them and being an obnoxious guy, is also a Q. At least,
Okay.
they define him as that. Uh, and under the purview of the Q that we know, he was actually supposed to be Trelane's mentor. And
Oh.
yeah, so that was at least in this novel. The connection was made. We saw him multiple times in TNG, in DS9, and in Voyager, but we never saw him in Enterprise.
Oh,
And
interesting.
we haven't seen him, at least not yet, in Discovery.
Hmm.
Now, I do know for a fact, or at least we know that he came back for season 2 of Picard, and we
Hmm.
will be getting to that here in a couple of months, starting season 1 of Picard and then season 2. By then, we'll have to see if we're actually going to be able to do it before season 3 comes out, or right at that time, and then watch season 3 of Picard at the same time. I
Hmm.
gotta see. But it could be. We know that it's not impossible that maybe Q is behind this, or somebody like Q maybe. That's a good thought. Okay. All right. Anything else that I missed?
No, I don't
Any
think so. I mean, I
thoughts?
just I anything that is an angel after seeing Midnight Mass, anything that's an angel is kind of suspicious to me. So,
Yeah, yeah. That's another good one. Midnight Mass, man. I love that.
oh, that was such a
And,
good series.
and I'm glad that they limited that as well to just that
Hmm.
one season. That was perfect. I,
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this before. I'd like to see more of that from some of these creators, creating finite stories that we know, and this is how it ends. Like as much as I I didn't dislike Stranger Things season 4. I was a little more disappointed in it than anything else, but I'm glad that season 5 will be the end, because I know that's going to help them bring a nice finish to the whole storyline in the last season. That's where it's going to end.
Right.
Um, and maybe there will be some spin offs or something else like that, but that whole storyline is, you know, got a finite end, and I think that adds volumes to a story instead of the way these people try to draw it out to get more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we did not see Tig Notaro, Janet Reno, or Jet Reno,
Hmm.
on this episode. She is coming back, and we will get some more of her comedy, but it seems like they're hopping around a little bit with trying to explore the various minor characters.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they have such a large cast too that it's like
yeah.
there's no way they're going to be able to do everybody in every episode.
I don't think Jason Isaacs Lorca is coming back though.
Yeah.
He dead. So
He did.
all right. So if there's nothing else, then next week's episode, our episode 10, we're going to have season 2, episode 3 of Discovery, Point of Light, and episode 4, An Obol for Charon. So we will see what it is next week then. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. See you later. Bye bye.
Bye.